do you have to have somebody in your life to love them, or can
Yeah.
you love them from a distance? What does it even mean to love them?
It's been hard to set those boundaries and walk away and know that I don't know the next time I'm gonna have a conversation or see them. Not because I'm angry and bitter. I think it's more so because me continuously having to be the way I was growing up is damaging to me in my healing process.
Whenever you cut them off, they see that as you being selfish and you not loving them.
Yeah.
It's almost more selfish to not cut them off. Rachel, welcome to episode 6 of Question Everything.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be on the show.
Yeah, it's we're trying some new lighting this time because it's trial and error, and also I can do what I want. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I spent like a long time this morning trying a different lighting setup, and this room is just too small. And everyone that I've had on so far says that before I turn the main light on and before we start recording, they like this vibe. So
Yes, I
hopefully,
agree. It's a lot more chill in here. I
yeah,
like it. Yeah.
yeah. So hopefully it'll translate well, and if it doesn't, whatever.
Sounds great. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for coming on. It's crazy because we actually met through Uber, which is like
We did. Yeah.
really wild, but things happen.
I've had the craziest experience with Uber drivers though. Like,
Yeah.
I've met some cool people Ubering on my ride. So,
I've heard like a lot of mixed reviews from Uber drivers. Like some people are like, yeah, like most of my Uber drivers are pretty cool. And then other people are like, every single Uber driver I've had has been completely nonverbal and driven like an absolute maniac.
I've had my share of those, but recently I feel like I've met some cool like businesses through Uber. So, you never know. You can network and
Yeah.
grow your company. So,
Yeah. So speaking of companies, like what do you do?
So I run a company called Music City Management Group.
Okay.
We are kind of in the movement of rebranding at the moment, but it is a social media and brand management company. So specifically, I work with people in social media to promote their companies as well as them as an influencer. Um, but it's different because I only choose influencers that are authentic to who they are. So I'm very particular in what
Mm.
who I choose, and I think that's kind of why I started the company. So
Yeah.
yeah,
What's your metric for like measuring if somebody's actually being authentic versus somebody who's just, I don't know, clout chasing or something
exactly.
else?
Getting to know them outside of the highlight reel, I think, is the most
Mm.
important thing because you can judge anyone on Instagram and kind of know, you know, who they are on a screen or behind a screen, but just sitting down having a conversation with them because
Mm.
I think everyone craves authentic relationships and I would love to get to know those. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that's how I kind of choose my people and I love it. Makes me enjoy my job every day. So,
that's good.
yeah.
Yeah, that's when we met and we were just talking about like what we do, that's something that stuck out to me was that you actually seem to enjoy what you do and you actually seem to care about it. And 99% of the people I meet are not like that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I don't blame them. Like, how
Oh,
can
yeah.
you be passionate about accounting? You know, like,
Reading numbers all day. Yeah.
yeah, like I'm sure there's one person out there that is just like
Oh, yeah.
fascinated, but most of the people that I meet just don't love what they do. And I think it's because we're all separated from like the artist within us. And
Yeah.
entrepreneurship actually can bring that out, which is cool. Um, so yeah, I kind of have a similar process, like we talked on the phone for an hour before,
Yep.
like a week ago, just to really figure out, hey, like if we were to do an episode together, does it make sense?
Exactly. Yeah. And I appreciate that. I think I needed that to know if this is a podcast I feel
Mm.
comfortable being on. So it's on both sides of the table, but
Yeah,
I like it.
that's
Yeah.
good. There's one thing that could make it more comfortable, which is turning these into massage chairs.
Oh yeah.
That would be sick.
That would be awesome. I think you should invest in those. Yeah.
Just push a little button and then go, like
Yeah.
as we're talking,
Have
we're
your
like,
guest. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Well, it's funny that you brought up like, people being true to themselves, and you also recognizing that people want authentic relationships.
Hmm.
Because something that we were just briefly touching on before we started recording was um, having relationships that aren't authentic, right? Having
Hmm.
people in your life that they just continue to choose ignorance and continue to choose to hurt people and choose to not understand you and choose to just basically be a force of destruction in your life.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
like dealing with that, um, I it seems like both of us in different parts of our lives are experiencing really just coming to terms with like not explaining yourself or defending yourself to people.
Yes. Yep.
Um, so I'm curious, like, what it is that you're going through that's kind of had that rolling around in your mind, and yeah, just like why it's so important to you.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's been a journey of a couple years now of just self-discovery is really what it's been about, and just relearning my identity and what is important to me and who's important to me. Because
Mm,
um, about a year and a half ago, I went through something where someone decided that it was their responsibility to expose a mistake from my past online. And it really
mm,
blew up. And this person is I would call them an influencer. And, not in the grand scheme of influencing, but they do have a platform. And
yeah.
it caused a lot of reaction from people who know me from the past, and didn't know of the situation. And then, there's questions because I think online, when something's put out there, people love to jump the bandwagon.
Oh yeah.
And it's so easy to just immediately comment whatever you want and to believe whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned through that process that I don't have to defend myself, and my reaction is something that I can control. And in the world of online hate, I think it's so hard to kind of moderate what you believe and who you believe in the voices that are being put out there, because anyone can say anything behind a screen.
It's
Um,
very true.
yeah, but if they're standing like next to me, like you and I are, like, are they going to say the exact same thing?
Yep.
And I've learned that that is not true. I mean, I think we can all speak. Like, I can say anything I want to someone on a text message or online, but I'm going to word it a lot differently when I'm sitting down with them. And I think
Yeah.
that's just human nature, right? We're all conditioned to kind of present ourselves a certain way in front of someone. But online, we get this energy that we're just going to go after someone.
There's
And
a physical threat too
yeah,
when you're in person. Like it's so funny you brought that up because I was literally just talking about this the other
yeah,
day about how so I've had a couple people on the show already where we don't see things the same religiously, which is a very
yes,
that's very high pressure,
hmm,
right? Religion is like a very difficult thing for people to talk about.
exactly, yes,
And we see things differently enough that if we had just remained online and tried to have a conversation, aside from the fact that it's just infinitely harder to like text back and forth than it is to talk, like there's something about being physically removed from somebody that not only lowers the physical threat, but it also kind of dehumanizes them because
yes,
they're just pixels
exactly.
saying things that are pixels. So like I totally agree with you. That's why I want to do this podcast is so that one, I can force myself to like interact with people that have different perspectives because that's how we learn. But it also is, I want to like show that, hey, the people that you're like thrashing online on the daily, they're real people. And you
Exactly.
wouldn't talk to them that way if you were in person with them.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's so real. I think having a conversation these days in front of people is something that is so hard for people to do.
Hmm.
Um, and I appreciate when, there's a conflict and the other side wants to have that conversation rather than fight on a text message or online.
Yeah.
And I've learned that, be careful what you say online because it will and can be used against you. Um,
Yeah.
and it goes for both sides. I mean, I have to be careful what my reaction to the online hate was, and
Yeah.
I chose to be silent, and not in a way of being meek and just succumbing to the hate, but more so my reaction spoke more to who I was in my healing process as a person than anything.
Yeah.
And I did it for myself, not for anyone else. So,
How did you come to that place though? Because like when somebody's slandering you, it's you have a gut reaction
oh,
or
exactly.
a knee-jerk reaction. And so like it's great that you made that decision, but what was happening before that? Like what led up to you finally just deciding I'm just going to let it go?
I think being around the people that cared about me and genuinely wanted to understand me,
Mm,
um, and cared about the whole situation, I think is what really helped me. And I also think a part of it was just, I know we had, kind of briefly touched on just me and you talking in conversation that self improvement is very kind of lonely. And
totally.
I went through a period of just feeling so alone. I had lost so many people. And I feel like throughout my life, I've dealt with fear of abandonment. And it wasn't until I took the reins full on and was like, this is something I'm going to deal with, and heal for myself and no one else, that it really taught me, that it's okay to just be silent for a while and not explain myself or not over explain myself or defend myself to people that I don't truly feel like deserve that defense or, even explanation really. So,
Yeah.
um, just kind of learning who I was and also hanging around the people that truly care about me, um, kind of helped me get through that time.
Yeah. It's good to have people that like they're actually on your team and they actually want to see you win, which
Exactly.
seems to
Yeah.
be very, very few. The
Yes.
further along this journey of like self transcendence that you go, like it's
Yeah.
that's what the entire previous episode was about. I have a curveball for you because you
Yeah.
said something that just like totally resonated with me. You mentioned that you have a fear of abandonment,
Yes.
and I do too.
Hmm.
And it's something that I'm actually currently still, annoying as it is,
Yeah.
still working on in my life. Um, I'm curious, like, where that fear comes from.
I think it comes from a lot of aspects. I would even take it down to the beginning of being adopted. So I was adopted when I was 7 months old. I have a twin brother, who's amazing. He lives in Franklin, Tennessee. And he and I were adopted at 7 months old. We're both biological siblings.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't say specifically, I remember obviously being 7 months old and having a fear of being abandoned. I think it just deep down played a role in how I thought about myself growing up in relationships. And it's
Like,
kind of,
even just knowing that you were like adopted at seven
yeah,
months old.
knowing I was adopted. And I don't even think I recognized that I had a fear of abandonment until probably the last few years.
Hmm.
And that's kind of on the journey of self, like exploring who I am and my identity. And so, um, that's kind of where I feel like it resonated with. But also throughout my life, I've lost a lot of people, lost
Hmm.
relationships, not physically lost people, but I would say lost relationships.
Yeah.
And that falls into both family and friends. And yeah, I mean, it's all for the better. It's all been for the better at the end of the day, but it's kind of been that trial and error of just like, what is the core of why I'm so fearful. And I think it just kind of boils down to like fear of abandonment and people leaving. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Why does it? I mean, with family, obviously, it's one thing. Like, family is something that is just you're like born into it, and you can't really choose your family until you get older,
Yes.
right? And it's funny because I've met a lot of like older people that say, the younger generation, their problem is they just don't value the family anymore. And it's like, no, like we see that there's a lot of problems
Yes.
in the families that we've grown up with, and we've given everything we can, every opportunity, every ounce of grace that we possibly can to like make things better and stop the cycle of abuse and like learn how to treat each other like human beings and learn how to treat each other equally. Just because I'm your child doesn't mean I'm less than you, that kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yep.
And we're continually met with a an attitude and a barrier of like, no, like this doesn't need to be changed. You're the problem. And so at that point, you do have to choose your family
Yes.
because like so so yeah, that's with family it's tough, but I'm curious with friends, you do choose your friends for the most part throughout your life. Why does it hurt so much to lose them? Like this fear of abandonment is here, right?
Yep.
And I have this more like from I would say like romantic relationships from like growing up. Um, but like why does it hurt so much to lose somebody like that?
I think because it's my personality. I truly am someone that is loyal when it comes down to it, and to open up to someone is extremely hard for me. And to lose them is hard for me because of the information that they know about me and who they know about, what they know about me, and like just them, I guess the fear of what they're going to use that against me one day.
Hmm.
Because of the hate that has been online. And I wouldn't say it's been, the fear of abandonment my whole life in the terms of friendships.
Sure.
Um, but within the past few years, that's been something I've really struggled with, just loss after loss. And I wouldn't say it's all there, like the other side's fault, like the friend, or, there's been situations where it's been on me.
Totally. Or
And
just both.
yeah,
Most of the time
both.
it's
Yeah.
both, but
It's both parts, right? But
yeah.
I wouldn't say I don't have any fault in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of why it's been such a hard loss for me, because I do care about those people. At the end of the day, it's like even family, right? Like losing family is hard, and I've kind of grown up to acknowledge that, like, yes, I can choose my family, but it doesn't make it any less hard to lose those
Yeah.
kind of people.
Still
So
hurts.
yeah, yeah. And I feel hurt very deeply. And I think that's just kind of who I am as a person.
Yeah, it's you mentioned like the online hate situation and
Yeah.
somebody that you trusted and that you allowed access to you, you allowed them to get close to you. They took something that they learned about you or that you shared or whatever, and they used it against you. And so I I'm assuming that this fear of abandonment in the sense of like somebody abandoning you and almost betraying you, I'm assuming that fear was present before this situation.
Yes.
So was there someone really important to you in your life that you felt either just on a one-off instance did that or did it constantly where they used your vulnerability against you?
I would say it was more use my vulnerability. Because I am the friend that, I mean, you can ask my friends now. I have the tightest circle that I've ever had in my life, and I am so grateful for those people in my life. But you can ask one of those people, and I would do anything for them. I would, jump in front of a moving train for that person or take a bullet. Like, I am that loyal. And I think that's why it hurts me so bad, because I truly give my all to people. And I wouldn't say that, there's like, I've never not made a, I've made a mistake, in some aspect of my friendships that I've lost, but I think it's made me scared to lose those people because I truly care about them. Um,
Mm.
and I wouldn't say there's a particular reason or person that has caused that. It's more so just me and my personality, like vulnerability in those friendships. And I guess there was one instance. I was in high school or college, and I was friends with someone for about 7 years. And this incident, which was the online hate situation, created a rift between our friendship. And I never got to explain myself, defend myself. And not that I needed that, but they never gave me the opportunity to have like a conversation like you and I are having.
Yeah,
And
they never wanted to
they
understand you.
never wanted to understand. Yeah. Whether I was in the wrong or not, I totally would have had that conversation. Um, and that is something I'm still healing through. And so,
Yeah.
um, just situations like those, I wouldn't say in particular, just I think it kind of falls into who I am, and also like just perpetual hurt in my life. So,
Yeah, that's also another really difficult part of like self-improvement is when you've really changed a lot as a person.
yep.
You look back and you realize, yeah, like I obviously I was hurt a lot by these people but I also did a lot of damage that, I look back on even just relationships that I had, probably from it when I was like 14 to like 19. And I look back on all of that, and I was not as good of a partner as I thought I was.
Yeah.
Like at first, I think it was just me being um, very like very dependent and having no sense of like self-respect or confidence that drove people away in the beginning. Like a lot of these girls that I dated early on, just yeah, I mean it's not like desirable to be with somebody that just has no sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
And so there's that, but then as time went on, it turned into me seeing that and overcorrecting, and that overcorrection manifested itself in the form of me just being like way too focused on the wrong things and almost like not being authentic
Yep.
with myself. And I know that I hurt a lot of people because of that. And like, I'm sure that anybody could come out, someday and like either 100% like truthfully like say some stuff that I did, or even spin it out of control and like try to hurt me,
Yep.
and like that's, I've never really talked about this, but like that's something that I think about every day.
Yeah.
um and it is a reality. Like I don't think anyone would care to do it now, but what if
But what if, yeah.
things are way bigger,
Yep.
right, in the future? And so that's the hard part, is like looking back on who I used to be and the way that I used to act. And like I wish that I could go back and just like apologize to everybody that I hurt. Um and like there are some people that I've tried to. Some people
Yeah.
I just can't get in contact with,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
like it is scary. You're faced with like the reality of who you used to be
Hmm.
when you change.
Yeah.
And other people are too. Like they want to continue to hold on to the unhealed version of you because it's safer for them. And whenever you've actually changed, it's harder for them. They're faced with either the reality that they haven't changed much, or they're faced with the reality that like they can't continue to blame you.
Yep.
So I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of that, or if any of that resonates with you.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I think what you said, you kind of nailed it. For me personally, I believe that people don't want to see you better, um, and healed, because they hold control over the person that's unhealed, like the unhealed version of you, like you said. And for me, I've had to learn that that is okay, because it's only hurting them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I know who I am, and I know that I've changed. I know that I'm not the person I was, when they knew me. And yeah, it is hard, because we want to prove to everyone that we're not that person. And that's human nature. I mean, the people I've hurt in my past, I would love to gather in a room, a very large room, because there's been a lot of people that I've hurt, and
Yeah.
all just have a kind of like a global apologetic, speech. But at the end of the day, is that going to change their view of me? Um, is something that I've had to kind of sift through in my own mind. Um, and I don't think it would, because I think the people who would be in that room and want to continuously use that against me or hurt me would walk out of those doors and do the same exact thing, even knowing that I was different. Um, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that I've had to kind of work through personally, um, and alone also. And it's taught me that I don't have to defend myself in those situations. And I know at the end of the day who I am. I know that I'm not that person, and the improvement that I've made has only been for me and not for them. It's shifted my way of healing. I'm not healing for anyone else other than myself. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's, for your situation too. I think it's a powerful thing to do. Um, it's a realization that when you realize the aspect of healing for yourself and no one else, not to prove it to anyone else, it kind of changes your mindset in looking back at your old self and kind of just grieving that, but also being proud of who I am now. Like
Yeah.
I can sit here and genuinely say I'm so proud of who I am now. Um, I'm not proud of who I was at any aspect, but
Yeah.
I'm proud of, the person that's sitting in this room having this conversation with you. And that is what keeps me going on a daily basis, to keep, being that person. So,
Yeah. That's it was a difficult switch to make, right? Going from like, okay, I needed like at first you want to change to please other people.
yep.
And then you you want to change because you're tired of being so miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to change because you realize you've hurt a lot of people. And then you
Yeah.
want to change just because you deserve it.
Yep.
And like it's a kind of a weird like 4-phase process. And maybe I missed a phase or maybe I added one that doesn't need to be there, but like I've never thought of it that way, but that's like how it's been for me is I changed at first just to please other people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I thought like people didn't love me and I was so great, but they just didn't love me. And then I realized like I'm sick and tired of like being treated this way and I just need to change because like I'm sick of it. And then you start changing because you're like, oh man, I wasn't all that great, was I? Like
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt anyone else. I don't
Yeah.
want to hurt the people that I have in my life now. And then ideally you finally settle into this place where you do it out of a place of self-love.
Yep.
And that that shift, that's when you lose people.
Yeah.
Because like when you actually lose people that you thought were in your corner.
Yep.
Because they like doing something because you love yourself, it does require humility. It does require you to acknowledge where you've went wrong because you can't improve if you don't know what's wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like if you don't know what the disease is, you can't cure it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, it's I mean, what is that like now, post you coming to this realization where you need to um, just stop trying to defend yourself with people?
Yeah. I think it's made me more conscious of my actions. But like I said, not in the way of like pleasing people, but more so just because I'm different and I don't have to sit constantly and remind myself of who I was and hold that. There was a point in time where I was so scared to leave my house because I was afraid of people meeting me in public or seeing me,
Yeah.
at Target or Walmart or whatever, and like acknowledging those mistakes. And it wasn't anybody that had done that. It was my own kind of enemy in my mind of like, go.
You were so afraid of the things that you had done and the person
Yes.
that you were that
Yep.
you didn't want people to like almost reflect that back at you and be reminded.
Exactly. Yeah. I think I was living in so much guilt and shame until I genuinely forgave myself for that and healed. And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing is, instead of I stopped covering that wound with a band-aid perpetually is, the best way to put it. And was
Yeah.
like ripped it off and was like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to heal once and for all.
And you
And
got to pour the alcohol
yeah,
in it and it burns.
exactly. It burns and it hurts for a while and it's lonely. And it just really sucks. I mean, it's the most horrible thing I've gone through, like the most painful thing that I've been through. But it's taught me so much about who I am, the people that care about me, the people that I need in my life, and who I look for now in relationships and friendships. And it's made me who I am now and the person that um, I am in a business and a friendship. And I'm proud of that. I think I can sit here and be genuinely proud of who I am. So
Yeah, being proud of who you become is like a really good place to be.
yeah,
And what you said about it being painful, like the most painful thing that you've gone through, like, yeah, learning to forgive yourself is the hardest. Because
yeah,
like you don't live with other people. Like you're not
right,
in other people's heads 24/7. You're in your own.
yeah,
And so when you Like the way that other people have hurt you and then trying to forgive them, like that's hard enough, especially when they've been like a really big part of your life. Like if it's a parent or a sibling or like a longtime friend, but you've been with you since day one.
Yeah.
And so like knowing the things that you've done and then really coming to forgive yourself for that, like that's the only thing that's going to set you free. Like nobody else saying they forgive you, nobody else even giving you the opportunity to apologize for the things that you've done. Like you have to come to this place where you just genuinely forgive yourself and
Yeah.
give yourself grace. And because if you don't do that, you're not allowing yourself to be the new person that you become.
Yeah. That was the turning point for me, is when I stepped into forgiving myself. That was the moment I stepped into freedom.
Yeah.
And that, I think is symbolic for a lot of areas of people's life, right? Like when you kind of get rid of your old self, that gives you the ability to kind of be the person that you want to be. Um, and for me, that, was starting a company in complete fear of what people would say of who
Hmm.
I was, because I started a social media company when I was getting social media hate. And that's probably the
Nice.
worst company you could start, when your online hate is just kind of, it was in the thick of it. I had so many people telling me, like, I don't think this is a good idea. What if someone says this about you? And those fears definitely were in the back of my mind. It wasn't that it was not there at all. It was the fact that I had the opportunity to be who I was and to represent, who the healed version was. And
Yeah.
it's kind of proven itself. I mean, I've been successful in my company now for a year in my business, and it's all been, the new version of myself and the healed version. And that is something I'm proud of and I'm very protective of, as I take clients. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's also a good point is like when you come to this place where you forgive yourself and you embody the new you, you also start to attract people that see you that way.
yep.
Because that's something that I've noticed is during like my late teen years and then yeah, basically my late teen years and even into my very early 20s, I was just constantly met with this like misrepresentation from people. I was met with this like people seeing me the wrong way. Like people wouldn't perceive me the way that I actually was. And I was like, why do people think that I'm this way? Like, a lot of my old girlfriend's parents thought that I was a punk. And like
Yeah.
I wasn't actually a punk. Like I was never like a criminal or like yeah, I wasn't like up to no good, but for some reason they perceived me that way. And I would say like I'm like a punk in some ways, but like I don't know. I was always just dealing with this like perception that other people had of me. And the funny thing is, it was only reflecting how I thought about myself.
Yep.
Like that was really difficult. And so I think as you like come up on this journey, you're also met with opportunities to kind of test what you've learned.
Mhm.
It's like a pop quiz.
Mhm.
So like somebody will come back up in your life from the past or a new person will come into your life and they will show you very quickly how they see you, what their intentions are, and it will reflect something from the past where you like had to learn from that and then you have to make the decision like am I going to people please, am I going to defend myself, am I going to like just let them walk all over me, or am I going to put my foot down as the new version of me and be like no, I don't have relationships with people like you,
Yeah.
you're out.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
And the more that you do that, the more you attract people that see you the way you truly are
Yeah.
because you're being who you truly are.
Yeah.
So that's what I've noticed is like more and more people, they're like, you have a really great voice for a podcast. And I'm like, nobody would have said that to me a year ago, two
Yeah.
years ago, but it's happening now. And so like people are seeing me the way that I perceive myself. And it's because I'm allowing myself to really just be me
Yeah.
and like love that.
I think that you attract the people around you that is the person you are, right? And like you
Mm.
just kind of spoke on that. think it speaks in relationships and friendships. I mean, if you're someone that loves to feed drama, you're gonna attract the people that love to be either the drama or to be fed drama or to spread drama. And I'm very careful about that in my friendships. My
Yeah.
best friend that I met a year and a half ago, her name's Kate. She also lives in Nashville. Um, her and I mean, we have a zero drama policy in our friendship. I think that just speaks to who we are as,
Zero drama
as
policy. I
yeah.
love it.
And it's not that we've had to like maintain that boundary. It's just that it's there. Like she is the greatest friend I've ever had because
Yeah.
she understands me so well and she knows, things of my past, but she's never sat there and said, I need you to defend yourself in these situations. She's been the one that's encouraged me to
Mm.
keep being just a better person and not let those voices of the past dictate, my actions or sit there
Yeah.
and have to play a role in the drama online. And that has been the most encouraging friendship that I have. And those are the kind of friendships
Mm.
that I've seen since I've changed and healed that has been attracted in my life. And I'm grateful for those friendships and I will hold
Yeah.
on to them and protect those at all costs. So,
Yeah, I'm with you. Like that's on the last episode, Conley and I talked about his artist name is Warner James. We talked about like just how refreshing it is at this point in our life to be friends with somebody that sees us for who we are,
mhm.
encourages us to be better in the best kind of way, and also acknowledges when they're wrong,
Yep.
which is like all three of those things have to be present for if you're going to be on this journey of self-improvement and like questioning your beliefs so that you can really just rise above where you were, then you're going to have people around you that check all three of those boxes.
Yep.
Like they have to be willing to understand you and also see you for who you are and accept you for that. They have to be willing to like encourage you to continue to improve and want you to do that, not just they want you to stay down so they don't look bad. And then the third box is they need to be able to admit when they're wrong and
Mhm.
when they're falling short. Um,
Accountability, I think,
totally.
is a big thing in friendships. I mean, my friends keep me accountable. I keep them accountable. We all keep each other accountable. And I think that speaks to the ability to be yourself in a friendship because when you can't admit you're wrong in front of people and fear of them judging you, instead of wanting to understand you, because that's who you are, and help you improve. I
Yeah.
think, you need to reevaluate those friendships. And that is something that I've learned, you know, even to make me a better friend. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the, I think with friends, it's like a little bit simpler. With family, it's very
Oh,
complex.
yeah.
This is like a very difficult thing to do with family. This is a thread also that I'm seeing with most of the people that I'm really close to in my life
Hmm.
is they're struggling with this aspect of their family.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know what it is about. Every generation talks about the other generations and how they're so,
Yeah.
it's like whatever. But there is a certain pattern that I think our generation is noticing. Maybe we've all already noticed it. And like we recognize how damaging it is
Yep.
because we've been hurt by it.
Hmm.
And every time we bring it up and say how hurt we've been by it, we're invalidated.
Yeah.
So like I'm curious with just on this like train of thought with coming to a place where you're not having relationships with people where you have to defend yourself. You shouldn't have to you shouldn't have to be on the defense
Yep.
against anybody in your life that you care about. Like if you're going to be vulnerable with somebody, they shouldn't be on offense. And so like how do you deal with the family dynamic? Because we had talked about before how it's something that's just given to you, right?
Hmm.
And at some point, I think you do get to choose your family. Like, oh, I'm your dad. Like you can't cut me off, right? It's
Yeah.
like, no, I can
Yep.
because I didn't choose to be your child.
Hmm.
Religious parents, it's even harder because they think, well, you did choose to be my child because before whatever, but
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. It is hard with family. I think for me especially, like it's so hard with family because I deep down love my family so much,
Of course.
regardless of the hurt that I have been through, whether it's my cause or theirs. I still, at the end of the day, would do anything for them. And I think that's what makes it so hard, is the
Hmm.
love I have for my family. But with that, also, I've had to learn to set boundaries, which has been something that was not preached to me as a kid. Because you obey your parents because it's the respectful thing to do, and you just don't say anything. And if you say something, it's disrespectful, right? And
And
like,
it's ungrateful.
and yeah, you're ungrateful and you get spanked or whatever. Like, there's always a consequence to speaking up. And I think for me, that kind of translated a lot into every single relationship that I've had. And
Totally.
especially with family, like now that I'm 26 and I have the ability to set healthy boundaries, I've had to set those healthy boundaries with some family members, and even on their side, I feel like maybe they've had to set boundaries with me, and that's their prerogative. I think some of that is not legit, but for me,
Yeah.
I've had to set those boundaries for my own health and mental health, I should say. And um, yeah, it's been hard. It's been, I think, something I'm still grieving because I love them all. I mean, I only have, you know, parents, obviously, and then one sibling, but um, my boundary doesn't mean I don't love them any less. I think it means I just love them, um, and I love myself and value that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been hard. It's been hard to set those boundaries and walk away and know that I don't know the next time I'm gonna have a conversation or see them. But it's different though, because I think when I'm able to have those conversations, I hope they see I'm not the person that they think I am, and that I can be vulnerable without having to be defensive. Um,
Yeah.
and that's the reason why I set those boundaries, not because I'm angry and bitter. I think it's more so because me continuously having to be the way I was growing up is damaging to me in my healing process.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if there's a difference between like loving somebody, like, do you have to have somebody in your life to love them? Or can
Yeah.
you love them from a distance? What does it even mean to love them? Like, because that's how it is with friends too, just with anybody that you care about in your life. Whenever you cut them off, like they see that as you being selfish
Hmm.
and you not loving them.
Yep.
And it's like, it's almost more selfish to not cut them off because when you're not able to heal, you continue to damage other people around you.
Hmm.
Whenever you are able to heal, you're able to bring that healing to others.
Yep.
And so I think the most selfless thing, because it hurts so much to draw these boundaries with, especially with family, right? And it's like if you're unwilling to go through that pain, if you're unwilling to face that, that's selfish.
Hmm.
It's more selfless to do what needs to be done by creating that boundary so that you can heal, because like with both of us and with our businesses, like we have things we're trying to accomplish.
Yep.
Like the influencers that you work with, they're trying to make an impact on people. And with me, like I'm trying to help people along this journey of self transcendence. And I can't do that if I'm continually putting myself in a position where I'm being hurt and manipulated by the people I care about just because I don't want to do the hard thing and hurt their feelings and cut them off.
Yeah. I think it's a big part of it is I've had to tread waters of not hurting their feelings and making them think I'm cutting them off because I'm bitter. Um, and I've kind of had to accept that what they think of me is something I can't control. Their reaction is something I can't control.
Yeah.
And it's been a journey with family for sure. Friendships, like you said, is a whole other ball game. I think, we have this kind of assumption in life that friends come and go, right? And then,
Yeah.
you can pick your friends and, you can never talk to them again. It's one thing. but family, you're kind of tied to them.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like like these boundaries are a lot harder to draw than any other boundaries.
And it's so silly too, because like you find yourself caring so much about how they feel. It's like, when have they ever given a shit about how I feel?
Yeah,
Like, when have they ever like stepped on what is the phrase? When have they ever walked on eggshells for
yeah,
me? When have they ever cared about how I'm going to react to something or how it's going to make me feel? Yeah, I'm sitting here literally allowing myself to get hurt over and over and over just because I don't want to make them upset.
yeah,
That is so stupid. They're already upset.
yeah,
They're already angry.
yeah.
Like, just do what needs to be done.
Walking on eggshells is a good way to put it. I feel like I've done that in every aspect of my life for so many years with so many
Same.
people. Just walking on eggshells, whether it's at, my career, my job, my family, my friends, even with myself, I feel like in some aspect of like been walking on eggshells to not disappoint my own self.
Yeah.
Um, and it really, I feel like takes a toll on you mentally. It puts you in this very deep, dark, depressed state.
It's exhausting
Yeah,
too.
and exhausting to keep up with. There's just like you're constantly on a treadmill of like just fear of disappointing someone, fear of hurting
Yeah.
someone, and for what? I think at the end of the day, I'm like, why was I doing that? And I look back at my old self and like, there are so many things that I wish I could have told, my 13-year-old self before I decided to do those things, or
Ugh.
my 20-year-old. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
26, but like, I feel like I'm still young enough to like reflect on the 20s. I'm
Yeah.
still in my 20s, but just like I wish I could have told myself when I was 21, like these things. Maybe it would have
Totally.
prevented so much hurt that I've had to go through within the past 2 years. Um, but I don't regret going through those
Mm.
things because it's made me sit here in this chair and like be proud of who, I am now. And I don't think I would have had, I wouldn't be in the place to have this conversation authentically a year and a half ago. I
Yeah,
think
me
I would have
neither.
still sat here and tried to cover, what I was feeling deep down and the hurt I was trying to cover up. And now I'm just sitting here like, I know behind me there's so many people who may even see this podcast and be like, oh, just have so many horrible thoughts about me and it not affect me is like the most proud I
Yeah.
can be. And yeah, it just proves to, the work I've done, whether people see that side of me or not. So.
Yeah, it is. It's also like an act of preservation too, because like you want to preserve, like, man, it really is just so selfish to not like do what needs to be done by cutting somebody off, because whenever you're like whenever you care about them getting upset, you're like, are you really caring about how they're feeling, or do you not want them to be mad at you
Yeah.
so that you feel the pain of them being mad at you? You
Yep.
see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but also with the kind of the digital stuff, I'm still trying to find that balance. Maybe I have found a balance. Like, I don't think I struggle with it a whole lot, but I notice even with this podcast, with my earlier podcast, really just with the stuff that I make videos about on the internet in general, I I don't want to walk on eggshells, but I also want to be understood.
Yes.
So it's this weird like space where I'm aware that anything that I put out on the internet, like somebody's going to try to use it against me later.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes like that's in the back of my mind, and that's why sometimes I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. But then other times it's like I don't want to just impulse like say the first thing that comes to my mind, because like I want to represent myself properly.
Yeah.
People are only going to receive my message if it's communicated in the way that I intend. It's only going to help people if it's communicated in the way that I intend. So I'm curious, just kind of like tying back to the business side of things, and not just the business as in this vehicle to make money, but the business as a vehicle to improve yourself and fulfill a mission in life. Like, where does that balance sit for you now that you're coming to this place where you're like, yeah, I'm going to ignore the haters basically
Yeah.
and not let it affect me? Like, how do you find this balance between representing yourself properly, but also not not saying what you need to say?
Yeah. I think it is a balance, is a good way to put it, of like owning a company and having that thought of like representing your company well, but also authentically.
Yeah,
I only take influencers that I truly believe in that are world changers. And that is something that I am very particular on. I
mm,
could take, any kind of like pop star, any huge influencer, and do what I'm doing now. But at the end of the day, that doesn't fulfill, why I started this company. It doesn't make me happy. And I think that's something that I've told myself since I started this company is I don't want to wake up and because I've worked hard for this company. Like nobody knows behind closed doors the things. I mean, even for you, for your podcast, I'm sure it comes true. Like nobody knows what you do behind closed doors to make your company successful.
totally.
And it's hard work. It's like, I mean, staying up 72 hours in a row to like do things behind the scenes that no one knows. And I don't want to do that if it's not filling my cup at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
um, so I'm just particular on how I represent my company because I want it to make me happy. And I, not only just for me, but for other people to show them that, what I'm doing is changing lives, not just for money.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of why I do this. I love every single one of the influencers that I represent with my company is like the one they're become some of my closest friends, but
Mm.
also they're just making huge changes in the world.
Yeah.
And that just kind of proves my company itself. Like I don't have to do, I don't have to prove to anybody because it's just show, that it's showing itself through the impact that we're making on people. And I never sit down
Yeah.
with someone and say, I'm starting this company, um, and I'm trying to do this. Like I just explain, why I started this company and let them see for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it's really just a show, don't tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you have to do that already with entrepreneurship, and just being an artist in general. Like if you tell more than you show, as in instead of showing the completed work by putting it out,
Yeah.
you're just telling people about how you're working on it. I was stuck in that for way too long, like 10 years too long,
Yeah.
with my music, and that
Yeah.
was it. It sucks so bad to be stuck there. So in order to make progress as a business owner or an artist, you already have to adopt that mindset, but also just anybody on the self-improvement journey, you have to adopt this mindset of show don't tell,
Hmm.
where it's like I don't need to tell you that I'm working hard on these things, and I don't need to tell you why I did certain things. Like I don't need to defend myself verbally to you. Instead, I'm just going to show you the fruit of my labor.
Yeah.
And so whenever I reach out to people over DM to ask them to be a guest on the podcast, I don't need to say, "Hey, like I've been working really hard on this podcast, and like I've been working really hard to develop my philosophy on life, and because it's just been such like a really hard journey, like I feel like I deserve for you to be on the podcast." And it's a good podcast, I promise. It's like, no, I say, "Hey, this is like these are the types of people that I have on my show, and the reason for that is this.
Yeah.
I think that you would be a great fit. What do you think?" And just like that's it's like I already have the podcast. If they really care, they'll listen to it like you did. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Um, they'll listen to it, and we'll have a conversation to see if it makes sense. And it's the same with friends.
Hmm.
It's the same with any relationship in your life is you have to just look at each other and look at your life and the things that they're doing and be like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Like
Hmm.
I think we're in alignment with each other.
Yeah. And I appreciate that so much about, not even your podcast, but in general about people. Um,
Yeah.
I think it made me interested to be on your podcast because you didn't say like, as in an Uber ride that we had, you weren't like, hey, let's, schedule out a time to film this podcast. I need you on my podcast. It was more like, hey, let's schedule a call to talk about if this is a good fit. and have a conversation first.
Yeah. And that was after we had already been talking for
Yeah.
like 10
Oh
minutes
yeah, we had
about,
talked the whole Uber ride.
yeah,
Yeah, and I
yeah,
was like, great, like that. I need that for myself too. Like, is this something I want to be on? Because that's important for myself as well. And my company that I represent, and the people that I
mm,
represent, and the people I care about. Um, but yeah, I think it's just kind of like what you said, like the show versus tell. I mean, your actions at the end of the day speak louder than your words. And people can have this kind of um, idea of who you are based on what other people say about you to them, or
mm,
this kind of representation of you, and who you are and what you're doing can show a completely different side. And I appreciate the people that take the opportunity to watch, I guess, the show take place, and
yeah,
not sit back and be like, oh, I already. It's kind of like judging a book by its cover.
yeah,
And and I hate that. I hate people that come in and they're like, oh, like I've had these kind of assumptions about you, and I'm gonna like kind of judge you based off those. It's like, nope, clean slate. I'm just gonna see how you are. And
yeah,
those are the people that are genuine in life and you want relationships with.
yeah. It's also like maybe even a step further from judging a book by its cover. It's like judging a book just based off of like what other people have said about the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Um, like we are competitive creatures.
Hmm.
And so almost seeing it as just a healthy competition of like, okay, other people they've constructed a certain perspective of me, right? Other people say these things about me, other people talk to each other about me in whatever way. So I hope now at this point in my life it's good, but maybe it's not,
Yeah.
right? So it's like if these people have built up this perception, I just need to make sure that the stuff that I'm doing, the things that I'm showing is more powerful and authentic than that.
Yeah.
That way, when people are faced with which one to look at, it's like, okay, do I go with the things oh, Nolan is whatever, blah, 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 or Rachel's blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, I could choose to just agree with that and even spread more lies. Or I could just be like, oh, like, what are they saying about that? Like, why are they saying that? And then they look at what we're doing and they can see with their own two eyes like what we're actually doing,
Yeah.
and like the purpose behind it and the good that's behind it. So it's almost like don't pay attention to them and the things they're saying and trying to like fight what they're doing. Instead, just focus all of your energy on you and what you're doing,
Yeah.
and other people that actually give a shit will see it,
Yeah.
and it will be
it's hard.
few.
Yeah.
There will be less people,
Yeah. I think
but
it's hard to do because we're naturally competitive, like you said. And I think we also all have this like insecurity in our mind of like just the fear of being ourselves in a world where there's so much influence to be everything that you're not, or in like the characteristics of like dressing a certain way,
mm,
or saying, don't say this in this environment or whatever. And yeah, I think those are just things I've had to learn through like maturing. Honestly, it's a huge mature um, kind of step to take when you look at the whole picture of just relationships in general, and um,
mm,
finding your identity. So yeah,
totally. Bringing up maturity, I think, is also like it's so hard to be in a relationship with somebody that is just on a totally different level of like awareness and maturity, because that's like what maturity is, right? Is like intentional awareness.
hmm,
You could physically mature all you want. There are people that are 80 years old that still have the perspective that's like this big.
yeah,
So I think as you grow and as you grow your awareness, you grow your influence, you grow your impact, you grow your really just your mission, your vision for the future as it becomes more and more of a reality. Like the people that take away from that, you just have to let them go.
yeah. I think it's for me. I ask myself every day, or I should say every day recently, like if I die today, what do I want people to remember me for? Like, what is my legacy? And
Mm.
that's only something that you can write. Um,
Yeah.
no one's perception of you is going to change, the way that I'm going to live my life. And I think there's a kind of a balance between that. Like, I'm not going to not care, like, what people think, in the aspect of just like doing whatever I want and ruining and hurting people in that aspect of like not caring,
Yeah.
but more so caring about me, um, and who I am and my growth. And I think, going back to all of that social media and everything that I went through with that, um, really, it started out by damaging what I thought about myself. And it
Yeah.
was kind of like, do I let what these people are saying that I am just continue to be true, or do I change it and rewrite my, my legacy? Because I don't want
Yeah.
to die and people believe that that's who I am. um and some of the things that were being said about me were true for sure, and it was disappointing that I think it was hard for me to face it, because I think the first part in changing is acknowledging, like you said, your faults. And that's the
Yeah.
hardest part, is like, oh, I did really mess up, like
Totally.
I have fault in this. It's taking the initiative to acknowledge and then change and do something about it. And you have the opportunity to sit there and be like, oh yeah, that's, it is my fault. I can sit here and just sit in it and continuously do it and hurt people, or I can
Mm.
pick up the pieces and change. And if people want to see that change, that's on them. Um,
Yeah, because also like the people that are right for you,
mhm.
and the people that you're right for, they will see the flaws as well, but they will choose to see you for more than that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're continuing to like just again, if you're choosing ignorance and you're choosing destruction and you're choosing whatever, and you just won't decide differently,
Hmm.
then yeah, it's really hard to see somebody for more than that, right? Like if you're continuing to abuse the people around you, and no matter how many times they come to you and let you know that you're hurting them, you continue to do the same thing, that's different. But if you're somebody who is breaking that cycle and you're aware of the wrongs that you've done and you're learning to forgive yourself and you're learning to become better, like the people that are right for you, they will see you for all of you and not just your mistakes. Whereas the wrong people, they're just going to see you for the negativity. They're just going to see the mistakes.
Hmm.
That's all they want to see, and that's
Yeah.
their choice.
Yeah. And that's how it started. But I think the social media hate started with the opportunity to use it as clout. Um, and that
Mm,
that is like so sad to me, because it's still being used against me, and I'm not that person, and I have to sit here and let it roll off my back.
yeah.
And it's hard. I mean, human nature, it's like so hard to not like to sit here with my hands tied and not defend myself. But I know I just have to remind myself, and my friends do an amazing job of that. Like, hey, what you commenting back or defending yourself, what is that going to do?
They don't want to change their
Yeah.
mind. Like they're already showing you what their intent is, and their
Yeah.
intent isn't to understand. Their intent is to judge.
Hmm.
And yeah, you're right. Like you could be the greatest speaker in the world and it's not going to change their mind. So it's not worth your effort,
Yeah.
because there are, like you just said, there are people around you. Same with my life. There are people around me that see me for who I am. They're encouraging me to continue doing good, and they remind me of the good that I do as well, because we need to be reminded.
Yeah.
Like you can love yourself all you want, forgive yourself and value yourself all you want, but there's still times where we're hard on ourselves,
Yeah.
and it's hard to not let that stuff get to you,
Hmm.
and it's hard to not beat yourself up for the mistakes that you made or that you continue to make. And so like the thread that I'm seeing with all of this really is it's it's selfish to hold on to things that don't serve you anymore.
Yeah.
And really just if you want to step into this place in your life where you are tired of defending yourself and you are done with it, just continue to focus on your actions.
Yeah,
Focus on the things that you're doing, and you'll attract other people that see the value in that.
exactly. Yeah, I love it. I love that. That's what I've learned through this whole process is attracting the right people, and that's just a change in mindset. So,
Yeah.
and healing.
Oh, I appreciate you like coming on and sharing all of that. I resonate with like not the specific situations, but really just like the theme of
Yeah.
what we were talking about today. Like thanks for just opening up.
Yeah. Thanks for
And
having me. It's the first time I've kind of opened up about it publicly, and it's been great. I think, like I said, if I had done this a year and a half ago, I wouldn't be ready, but I just feel
yeah,
I'm not, I feel like I'm in the right place and right time to do it. So thank you.
yeah, matching.
I know you said that on your previous podcast, and I think it's so funny. I was like, oh, I wonder, getting ready this morning, I was like, I wonder, if
We
we
were
coordinate. And here we are
we were
coordinating.
feeling the green and the
Yeah.
black and the white.
Yeah. All the
So
three colors.
yeah,
I love it.
well, super cool. Thanks again, Rachel.
Yeah.
I'll
Thank
put
you.
put all your links in the description and stuff, and
Perfect. Thank you.
that way people know where to find you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course. Booyah.